While struggling to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus in their countries and striving to avert total economic disaster as a result of the imposed lockdown measures, African leaders and stakeholders are now pleading for some form of debt forgiveness for the ever-increasing foreign debt that has come to characterize most of the countries on the continent. We'll take a look at the possibilities that would be open to African nations if this proposition goes through. Also, are there any downsides to this? Stay on to explore all these and more. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's really going to help the channel to grow, and share with your friends. Also follow us on Instagram, and let's get to work. But just before we go really deep into the analysis of this topic, what exactly is debt forgiveness? Basically, it means erasing the debt that somebody owes. That's exactly what it means. It's now very common, especially in the United States, talking about Bernie Sanders in his campaign, talking about student loan forgiveness and all sorts of things like that. But in this context, it simply means erasing the debt that somebody or an entity owes. So that's what it is. And of course, it had some advantages in the context of using it for Africans, in the context of having debt forgiveness program done by the countries we owe the money so that they can assist us in Africa here. It's going to be something very advantageous. Now, the very first thing that we have to consider in that is that it is going to help to free up resources for internal development. So if a country is owing a lot of debt to another country and it has to be paying a particular amount or a particular portion of that debt every single year, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to realize that it is going to help that country to be able to have all these resources with them during the aftermath of this COVID-19, because so many countries are taking a hit economically at this period. So that's it. It's going to really help the nations, and it's primarily because of the COVID-19 that they are even talking about the debt forgiveness, because of the economic collapse that we are looking at in the horizon. Hopefully it doesn't come. So that's exactly what is going on. And of course, it will give the country breathing space for the economy to grow back, because after this COVID-19 goes away, you have to start building the economy. You are not going to be able to build the economy if you have racked up so much debt, racked up so much money, and then you are printing money in order to be able to maintain and to be able to follow up with the debt you are paying and all of that. You are just going to inflate the currency, and then the condition is not going to be good for your citizens. So it's a way of giving the country a chance, a breathing space for them to be able to grow the economy back. So even if the debt is not completely forgiven, at least they can grow the economy back and then have a prospect of being able to pay the money back. So that is very understandable. And there is another problem, which is that oil prices are down at this period. So having debt forgiveness is going to really help Nigeria at this time. Like, it's really going to help us. I mean, we based the 2020 budget on having oil at about $57 per barrel, but it's around $30 per barrel now, talking about the Brent crude oil. That is completely unsustainable. The oil has been slashed by 50%, the oil price. So it means the amount of money we're going to be getting has been slashed significantly. The revenues for the government has been slashed significantly. So many of the projects they're supposed to be doing has to be taken into consideration again, and then maybe some of them cancelled. That's one of the reasons they are even talking about merging some agencies in the federal government at this period. A couple of days ago, they were even talking about merging the FRSC with the police force. So there are reasons on ground why this thing is going to be really helpful, because government is now going into austerity measures and all of that, trying to manage money. And then add the grim possibility that salaries of workers will take a hit at this period, because if there's no money for them to pay the salaries, what are they going to do about it? And we are talking about the national level at this time, not just the states. We used to talk about the states, we are talking the national level at this time. That's exactly what it is. And a lot of retrenchment could be on the horizon, and that is the reason why the NLC, the Nigeria Labour Congress, is doing everything possible more than what it has always done before in order to protect the jobs of workers, in order to protect the salaries of workers, because they know what is coming. They know the avalanche coming up. That's the reason. That's what is happening right now. So it is very easy to see the possibilities, the advantages that will come with debt forgiveness for a country like Nigeria and many other countries in Africa. So, having dealt with the wonderful possibilities that will come with a prospect of having our debt forgiven, let us go to the problems with this idea. And the first problem hits at the heart of this policy itself, which is debt forgiveness. There is no such thing as debt forgiveness. When you talk about it technically, there is no such thing, because it must be paid by someone. Debts have to be paid by someone. Almost like they say there are two things that are sure in life: taxes and death. So that's the way this thing is. Debt must be paid by someone. These debts must be paid. And in this case, the creditors, that is the European Union for the most part, and China, will have to foot the bill if they are going to do this, which means their governments will pay the money on our behalf, which invariably means that it is their taxpayers that will be erasing our debt. It's their taxpayers that will really be forgiving the debt, which means the taxpayers are basically paying what we owed. What we owed. That's what those Europeans and Chinese will be paying if they are to do this debt forgiveness thing. So it's not like forgiveness of sin that suddenly just happens like that. The debt has to be paid. It has to be paid by someone. So that's the first problem. And then you have the problem that it will incentivize, it is going to encourage our politicians to be more irresponsible with borrowing. African politicians will only increase the rate at which they borrow irresponsibly. And this thing has been done before. It has been done before. Some countries in Africa have had their debts forgiven before. But what happened? The politicians only decided that they were going to borrow more money that they would not be able to pay back. Loans that they would not be able to pay back. That's exactly what happened. They went on and started borrowing again. So that's the problem. You cannot erase. It's an attitude. It's a behavior. It's a nature. You cannot just erase it like that. The only way for you to erase it is to allow the countries to be responsible. Let them be responsible for what they did. And then you have the problem that it is only going to leave us completely dependent on our creditors, which means our lives are now hanging in limbo. Our lives are basically dependent on whatever the decision of all these creditors would be. The European Union, the Chinese, the Americans, whatever they decide to do based on this debt forgiveness issue is going to determine whether our economy is going to be able to come out of this COVID-19 pandemic and be able to bounce back, or it's going to go down and be a real disaster. That's the problem. So we are highly dependent on their decisions now. How are we supposed to be a sovereign nation when we are completely dependent on the decisions of some foreign countries? That's the problem that we have just gotten ourselves into. And then you have the creditors' countries themselves. This is the funny thing about it. The funniest part of it is that the creditor countries themselves, those countries in Europe, they themselves took serious hit from COVID-19. It's not like their own economies are super strong and all of that and completely impervious to the effects of COVID-19. They had serious issues too. Their economies are facing hard times too. I mean, we are not unique. Even China is facing serious problems because they already had issues since they went to a trade war with the United States, and then COVID-19 hit them. So it has really devastated their own economy too. And now we expect them to come and bail us out even when we are in the same problem. That's the kind of mindset that I don't agree with, which makes me a little suspicious of the motives of the European Union. They have what I call soft bigotry of low expectation, which means they just believe that we can't do it on our own no matter what. So they have to come in as the big daddy, as the white knight, to come and assist the little brother and all of that. Now, it could be helpful in a way, but they are not doing it for any other nation around the world. They are not doing it for like India. They are not doing it for any other country facing hardship at this period. Again, we are all in this together. They have issues too. It's not like we are the only ones suffering from this. It's not like some sort of famine happening in Ethiopia. This is something that is global. So why are they being so focused on Africa? That's the problem. Not to mention the fact that China actually uses all these unpayable loans to gain foothold in Africa. That's exactly what they're trying to do. It's part of their plans in becoming very strong world power in rivalry with the United States. It's basically one of the reasons why Trump hates China. It's one of the reasons why Trump got into a trade war with China. That's basically what it is. And then you have to realize that countries are not charity organizations. We all have to know that. In Africa, we keep making that mistake, especially in Nigeria. Countries are not charity organizations. Countries have interest. One great man once said that. Countries have interest. That's the simple thing. If US is helping you on anything whatsoever it may be, you have to know that that policy must be something that the politicians can defend when they get back home. And how can they defend it? Using the taxpayers' money to do something in a foreign land if that thing is not going to help the United States. So that's basically the same thing with China. It has to be something that will benefit China. So if China is giving us loans and loans and loans very easily, it's because they're trying to get influence. They're trying to get a global recognition at the same level as the United States. So that's just basically what they're trying to do. We should never let that leave our mind. We should always be aware of that and stop running at every single opportunity to China to borrow money. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and also Facebook. Share with your friends and subscribe to the channel. It's really going to help the channel to grow. Thank you very much. Bye.